Now that I seem to be making a series out of this remakes and remasters malarkey, it seems fitting that I go back to what kicked off the whole trend in the first place. And no, it's still not The Secret of Monkey Island. That came out 4 months afterwards, according to Wikipedia. We're talking about Broken Sword Director's Cut, and I'm going to throw in Broken Sword 2 The Smoky Mirror Remastered as well, since they are astoundingly similar despite the difference in subtitles. These both fall under the purview of remaster, using both original and new assets to make up the final package, which works except for all the places where it doesn't. More on that later. The most jarring change you'll find is when you boot up Broken Sword Director's Cut and hear Nico doing the voiceover instead of George. That's because there's a whole new prelude section starring Nico and her phenomenal bad luck when it comes to journalism. She has an interview with a media magnate, but before they can get started, he gets killed by a mine. Noting the similarity between this and several other costumed killer stories she's written, Nico starts investigating. The section itself isn't bad, it's roughly an hour long and focuses on some of Nico's past. The puzzles are logical, no moon logic here, although they do require a bit of back and forth within a small area. Not as bad as the final puzzle of the Smoking Mirror, but worth mentioning. And there's a cipher puzzle too, which do not show up enough in games. I love these things. So whilst it's a perfectly good section in itself, I have to question why it's at the beginning. Mostly because you'll play as Nico for an hour, and suddenly you're George for the rest of the game. Basically, it seems to be there for people who've already played the game. Fine for them, but it could easily confuse first timers. So on to the differences. I'll be comparing this to Broken Sword running under Scum VM since it's the second easiest way to get this running. And I'm immediately baffled that both Director's Cut and Smoky Mirror Remastered run in 1024x768 resolution. Now 4:3 aspect ratio, sure. The original came out in 1996 and the sequel the year after that. Back when monitors had those smooth, voluptuous curves like your mum does, but 1024x768? Even for a 2009 release, that's surprisingly low. And to increase the baffle factor a little bit more, it came out on Wii and DS first, neither of which can pull off a resolution that high. And it's only that high if you select Augmented. If you select Original, it's even lower. That's only windowed mode, mind. Full screen seems to put it up to your full monitor size, but judging by the seamless way it transitions and the size of the icons, I suspect it's merely scaling everything up. I'm starting to think they call this Director's Cut instead of Remastered for a very specific reason. This is reinforced by the fact that George's intro is slightly changed to account for the new Nico section and includes a new voiceover. You know this because once that cutscene is over, it reverts to the original voice acting, which is of noticeably worse quality.
The big story was about the brutal murder of a French media magnate, shot down in cold blood. The guy oozed confidence, like a regular French statesman.
On the same level are the backgrounds and character animations pulled straight from the original. Great looking stuff, especially for the time, but you put those up against the new interface elements and they start to look like a fancy hat on a creeper. We're verging dangerously close to "we made it run on modern systems and that's it" territory. So I'll focus on the bits that actually are different. Interface first, you get 4 semi-transparent icons for inventory, diary, help and settings. A little bit odd compared to the original's full screen interface, but I think I know why this is. Whilst Director's Cut made it to Wii and DS first, I'm guessing it was designed with smartphones in mind. Also be why you click and drag items to use them rather than click once to select them. Unless it was put there entirely to piss me off. Even Broken Age made that an option. I mean, it was patched in later, but still. To be fair, they had the foresight to move the item you're dragging away from the cursor so it isn't obscured by the cursor. Your tiny cursor which is smaller than any of the items. You know, that one. The diary and the help serve the same purpose they always do in these games. Remind you of what you've done, what you're meant to be doing, and hinting towards how to do it should you so prompt it. Actually, the diary feature is a bit underrated in my opinion, so I'm not going to complain about it being there unless they screw it up. Like if they spoil an event that hasn't happened yet by mistake, something like that. Hint system could have been expanded slightly, I feel. First hint is a restatement of your goal, second hint is basically telling you how to proceed, third hint is how to proceed for dummies. In a world where game FAQs exists, a good hint system is the developer's way to stop people just playing with a walkthrough open the whole time. Let those of us who want a gentle nudge get a gentle nudge. We can't rely on UHS to cover everything. The rest of the interface improvements are focused on dialogue. The subtitles have a white background and a much more readable font. Hard to complain about that. On the other hand, we get these portraits for characters who do the talking, and I'm really not a fan of the art style. It's the harsh black outlines that do it. I don't know whether it's because they look bad or because they don't match any other part of the game's graphics. Their outlines are a darker shade of the colour they surround. They take these a little further in the second game by changing the face based on what's being said, resulting in fairly hilarious expressions like this, and a few moves you could zoom in on, drain the colour, rotate it sideways, and I'm pretty sure it would look like a medical diagram of a vagina. You'll have to imagine it yourself, I don't trust YouTube not to flag that visual. Vaginas aside, there's one more change I need to talk about. You can no longer die in these new versions. There was only a few situations where this could happen, but they are now unlosable. My gut instinct is that I don't like this, but I understand it's an absolutely outdated gameplay mechanic. It's far more rewarding if the challenge comes from solving an intricate puzzle rather than clicking the wrong thing and realising your last save was made yesterday. Were it up to me, I'd let the player die, but I'd kick them back to before they made the fatal choice. We saw this work very well in Resonance, and I think it was the time rewind animation that made that. I'm not saying there has to be an in-game reason behind the death retcon, but simply dropping you back into the game can feel a bit clumsy. And it might seem a little pointless in the grand scheme, but you've already got all the animation and voice work done. Not every game over screen has to be like Balance of Power. In fact, we're probably better off that way, you know? It was funny once. In any case, you can gleefully frolic through this game without the worry that it'll pan your nut in halfway through Act 3. And that's a good thing. Like I said before, there's a reason that Broken Sword gets the Director's Cut moniker rather than remastered. It's the original game with a new interface, new opening section, some extra features and a bit of editing. Same resolution backgrounds and animation, which have a tendency to look blurred when upscaled. Smoky Mirror Remastered is much the same, so the subtitle is pretty much a lie. Along with several so-called remasters we've seen recently, at least Revolution did it before it was cool. These are still the best versions of the game you can play though. Help, buy them through GOG.com and they'll throw in the original versions too. At least that way you can set your own resolution in windowed mode. Maybe I hoped for or was expecting more from them, especially Smoky Mirror Remastered, that really was getting quite cheeky. If you already have either game, save yourself a few pennies by using ScumVM instead. Everyone else, grab the Broken Sword Director's Cut and see if you like it. Despite all my snark, we're still talking about a great point-and-click adventure. I'm really hoping that by telling you about Nico's opening section, it'll dull the impact of never playing as her again. Apart from in the sequel. And the sequel after that, come to think of it.